this, let's bring in retired Air Force Brigadier General John Teichert. General Teichert served as the Air Force's Assistant Deputy Undersecretary for International Affairs from 2021 to 2022 and is currently a Republican Senate candidate in Maryland. General, thanks for being with us this morning.
Markie, thanks for having me.
I wanted to just start with, last hour we took the remarks live from Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Your thoughts on his blitz across the Middle East and what you think realistically might come of his diplomatic meetings.
Markie, I want to commend Secretary Blinken for all that he's been doing diplomatically there in the Middle East. Of course, part of this is related to securing the release of those hostages. Part of it is to prevent a broader spread of this conflict throughout the Middle East. But I think a big part of it that has been underreported is the fact that he and others are trying to figure out how to govern Gaza productively for the Palestinians once this conflict is over.
Yeah, and what becomes of the Strip and its people. The other thing I wanted to ask you about, sir, Hezbollah has sworn a firm and strong response after an Israeli airstrike allegedly killed 3 children, their grandmother in southern Lebanon. Are you concerned about a response, and what do you expect that response to look like?
Markie, we should be concerned at all times by any of these Iranian proxies. You just saw the Iraqi prime minister talk about removing the Zionist regime or an apology, but ultimately the strings are being pulled by Iran throughout the Middle East, and that includes in Yemen, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and Gaza. And ultimately the United States, with its positioning of aircraft carriers and now this Ohio-class submarine, needs to do whatever it can to demonstrate both capability and then, more concerningly, will, that we will not allow and will respond to activity that is prompted by Iran, and that includes by Hezbollah.
Yeah. General, I also wanted to play a bit of sound for you because later on today, we know that South Carolina Republican Senator Lindsey Graham and Connecticut Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal, they're going to introduce a resolution that would call for the United States to attack Iran if Iranian-backed terrorist group Hezbollah attacks Israel. Take a listen, and I'll get your take on the other side.
There is no Hamas without the Ayatollah's support. There is no Hezbollah without the Ayatollah's support.
It's aggressive, but it's absolutely necessary. The purpose of the resolution is to deter Iran by showing we're going to be behind the president as he seeks to stop the war from widening or escalating.
Yeah, so just listening to that back and forth and what we're expecting today, General Teichert, will a Senate resolution truly be enough to keep Iran and its proxies from ramping up this war?
Markie, all of this is about that word deterrence, which means stopping the adversary, Iran in this case, from doing what you don't want them to do. And I think this resolution is rooted in perceived American weakness in the region. And what I mean by that is that we've got these great assets, capability that we've now deployed to the Middle East, as we should. But in the Iranians' minds, there's a question about our will, our actual will to respond if attacked or provoked, because we've been appeasing Iran for the last 3 years. And ultimately, this senatorial resolution would demonstrate a level of will that we haven't seen from President Biden for the last 3 years.
Yeah, it's hard to, we were all talking earlier, how to even understand moving forward and negotiating when you're talking about a terrorist group who just wants Israel wiped off the map, where you even start with that, who has leverage, what that even looks like. My last question to you, sir, how would Hezbollah's full involvement change the nature of this war, and how similar are their weapons, their fighting style to Hamas's?
Markie, the Hezbollah forces are extremely capable and well armed with Iranian capability and support. And ultimately, that northern front would be a supreme difficulty for Israel. But ultimately, the mobilization of the Israeli Defense Forces early on in this conflict is in part to take the fight to Hamas, but it's also to deter and also ultimately to protect the northern flank there against the very capable Hezbollah. But we do have to remember that the strings to Hezbollah are being pulled by Iran. And if we can deter Iran, then it ultimately stops Hezbollah from doing the things we do not want them to do.
Yeah, and this war continues. Tomorrow will mark 1 month since the conflict began. Brigadier General John Teichert, thank you so much, as always, for joining the program.
Thank you, Markie.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.